In case you missed our last episode of Life with the Polites, MRL, Marriage, Relationships, and Love, here's what you missed. This morning's topic: when private becomes public. I want you to think about that. When private becomes public. For many of us, our relationships are private, but not secret. We're not hiding anything, but for many of us, we just want to be seen. There's no details. We don't feel pressure by others to share anything about what's private. We enjoy two things. We enjoy the privacy and the intimacy of our partners without the feeling like everyone needs to know our innermost secrets, until what's private becomes public. Now, not all bad comes out when private becomes public. But when it is bad, here's the question: how do we handle it, Facebook family? That's the theme for this morning's topic. How do we handle exposure? How do we handle bad exposure when what's private in our relationship is now public? How do we act? How do we act in response to others who recognize that you guys aren't together anymore? How do you handle that? It's a mouthful. But more than anything, there's no playbook for this. There is no playbook. But we do live in a social media culture. We do live in an environment that's very commanding when it comes down to influence on what's seen and what's shared in regards to relationships. So, let's just talk about this for a little bit. A lot of times, we don't recognize when our relationships were private because we carried them differently. I want you to think about that. A lot of times we don't recognize when we have a private relationship, we carry it differently. We carry it differently. What does that mean? It's our conduct. We conduct ourselves differently surrounding what's private. It's all about behavior. Our behavior is different. Our behavior in regards of how we carry ourselves, our exposure, the things that we allow people to see, and the things that are very detailed in our relationships. But when it becomes public, think about this. No one would have ever guessed we've been through what we've been. No one would have never guessed what we've been through because of how we carried ourselves when it becomes public. No one notices the concern. No one notices the pain until it becomes public. Then everyone notices what can't be held inside. Now, just for a little clarity, when our relationships enter into the public from a good aspect, so let's just deal with the good aspects first. We all know how to respond when it's good. We know how to respond properly when it's good. We know how to respond properly, and we know how to accept compliments and praise. We got that. But for many people, when our relationships enter into the public from the bad aspects, the disappointment, the hurt, what's left for a lot of us is only the strength to hold ourselves up. That's a complete turnaround. That's a complete turnaround. Let's talk and recognize something about strength. Strength isn't about how much you or I can handle. It's not. Strength isn't about how much we can handle before we break. It's about how much we can endure. Strength is about how much you can endure after you've been broken, after you've been disappointed, after you've been hurt. And that's when a lot of people realize it's not about what happened to us, it's how we are handling it now since it's become public. It's worth saying that for many people, sometimes we have to forget what we feel and remember what we deserve. When we get to this particular point and stage of when private becomes public, sometimes we have to forget how we feel and remember what we deserve. And for a lot of people, we need to understand that that's not a constellation prize. It's understanding that you're not settling for less. That's all that means. It's not a constellation prize. You are truly understanding that you are not settling for less. And how we handle things when private becomes public, it's not about what people think. It's not about what people say. It's about two things. It's two things. And for you guys that are actually viewing this, write a comment, a chat. Tell me what you think about this. When private becomes public, it's not about what people think or say. It's about two things that falls on us, that falls on you. It's about being motivated and moved. Motivated and moved to continue living. That's on you. That's not about what people think. That's not what people say. That's on you. You have to be motivated. You have to be moved to continue to live. Let's look at it biblically. In the Greek, the word move means to set in motion. Set in motion. Many people don't realize that it's in the journey to set in motion where we become strong. It's not about what people think. It's not about what people say. We have to realize it's in the journey that we set things in motion to become strong. And it really comes down, I believe that it really comes down to making a decision or making two decisions. The first decision is on a path. That's your first decision. Your second decision has to be whether or not you're committed to a journey. On one side, you have to make a decision on a path. On the second, you have to be committed on whether or not you're going to go on a journey. And it's a choice. It's a choice that many people struggle with. And many people struggle with it because what I believe are what called mixed feelings. Mixed feelings. So you ask, what are mixed feelings? Mixed feelings can be a lot of things, but I drill down to two certain things. Uncertainty is one, and the other is having an unsettled mind. That's my description. Now, there may be many others out there, but I think that's the point where a lot of people struggle with when they get to this point when public becomes private and the bad comes out. We don't set in motion because we're hindered behind mixed feelings. We're either uncertain or we have an unsettled mind. But here's where the true struggle lies. The true struggle lies within, and that's accepting that we have to move on. We have to move on from the relationship. You have to make a decision, whether or not you're going to make a decision on a path or you're going to make a decision to be committed to a journey. Let's just think about what I just said and put it in a text and where we can understand, relationship-wise. If we choose to remain in a relationship, when you choose to remain, you're saying you choose to be unchanged. I want you to think about this. I'm going to try to go real slow because I need everyone to try to understand where I'm going with this. If you choose to remain, you're actually saying that you choose to be unchanged. We're talking public becoming private. And what happens, we will be presented, when you decide to be unchanged, you are presented with a couple of things. You're presented with the same challenges. You're presented with the same routine. You're presented with the same storm. You're presented with the same situation until, wait for it, you've learned from it. You remain unchanged until you learn to live and learn from those things. And until you develop and understand the love for yourself, but more importantly, you come to the point in your life when you say no more. That's when you remain and accept to be unchanged. Now, you can also choose to evolve. Evolve means you are willing on changing. Evolve means that mindset-wise, you are bridging a journey. And what happens, you connect with your inner strength, and that means that you have discovered what lies outside of your comfort zone. But more importantly, when we decide to evolve, there is something that happens to each and every one of us. We awaken. We awaken with the understanding that there is more to what we just went through and endured. We've accepted the challenge to be motivated. We've accepted the challenge to move, and we've set the challenge to set it in motion. When private becomes public. Now, I don't think a lot of people may understand what I'm about to say, but it's from the same content. When we get from that point to where we've decided to go, and hopefully we've decided on the journey to evolve, to see better, to set in motion, we become very dangerous in a good way when we learn how to control our feelings. Because that's exactly what we've just done. That's the decision we've made. And let me give you 2 examples to qualify that statement. We've come to a grip with understanding that actions prove why words mean nothing. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we've matured. We've matured enough to answer this question. How much pain do I have to go through until I've had enough? That's part of you accepting to evolve. That's the part of you understanding the deeper within. That's the part of your awakening that I spoke of. Because when we learn that our weakness can be placed under control, it produces strength. And in many cases, I believe when private becomes public, we face these types of things. We face these types of challenges. But equally important, what I think we also have to understand is when we get to this point is to truly understand that our as is or our present state of our relationship of things becoming public shouldn't prohibit our future state of who we are to become. It is a move. It is what we set in motion that have us to clearly understand the posture that we find ourselves in. I said earlier, how do we handle it? How do we embrace the exposure, the bad exposure, when private becomes public? A couple of things I think is worth talking about that really helps open the eyes of how we overcome and that inner strength is released. One, we shouldn't be intimidated by curious minds. I want you to think about that. Think about your relationship that's been private and now it's public, and now, again, like I said earlier at the outset, there's always been limited details, but now it's public. Many people are intimidated by curious minds, and we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to feel that we can't tell it like it is. But more importantly, something for us to really, really think about as we massage this thing, we shouldn't allow people's perception, people's belief, or people's opinion to dictate their wannabe outcome. I used the word strength several minutes ago, and I hope we understand that's crucial of overcoming this posture. We can't allow ourselves to be intimidated. We got to be able to tell it like it is. And it's not on no one's perception to build their own outcome of your truth. Let's just paint a background of what I just said. And for those of you guys that are watching live, leave us comments. Leave us comments. You know, what do you feel about this? Have you have any of this came across in your life, and how have you dealt with it? But to just paint a small background of where we are and what we're discussing. Private becomes public. It's bad. After a breakup, many people are going to tell themselves what happened over and over and over and over again. We're going to rehash the details of the relationship, good or bad, over and over and over again. And eventually, when we had enough of the story and we've relived and we've rehashed it enough, we truly find out why it had to work out the way it did. That's your truth. That's no one's perspective. That's your truth. And like I said earlier, how do you handle it? How do you handle it? It comes down to something that we spoke of earlier. It comes down to one's behavior. It comes down to one's behavior. Your actions and your words should always agree. That what defines you. Your actions and your words should always agree. In other words, we're talking about integrity. When public becomes private, our integrity is what should be seen and heard. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your actions, your words agreeing. I'm talking about your integrity is what is being seen and heard. Because when we choose integrity, we're choosing our thoughts and our actions based on our values, on having standards, on having morals, and having principles, rather than personal gain or acceptance of others. That is what should be seen. That is what should be heard. You know, Facebook family, write this down, because this is real if you've been a part of this, and we've all shared portions of this. People know when your private becomes public that your actions will tell them everything they need to know. You can write that down, because they'll know. You know, we said earlier that many of us, our relationships are private, and we spoke of they're private, not secret. And like for many people, you know, you're not hiding anything. It's just about, you just want to be seen. I said that the details are limited, and more importantly, that we don't feel pressured by others. Here's the meaning behind all of that. There are many people who know you, but there are few people that understand you. Private versus public. So when we get to this realm, we get to this point in our relationship, here's the point where a lot of people miss it. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're a product of your decision. You're not a victim of circumstance. You are a product of your decision. When private becomes public in our relationships, when it's bad, and again, I re-emphasize we're talking about bad because we all can handle good. When it's bad, in my opinion, there's only three choices. We either let it define us, we let it destroy us, or it let us strengthen us. There's only three. You have to be able within yourself to choose how your ladder will be better. For a lot of us, we fall like a card hand. We let it define us because we're afraid of talk. We're afraid of gossip. We're afraid of other people's opinion. And then we let it destroy us. Then there's others who have the strength to stand and let it define them by their strength. We all get to this point in our relationships where we have to be able to make hard decisions in the quest for strength within us to set in motions the things that will make us stronger and better. And one of the things that I truly believe where people go down far to the left than to the right is that people allow themselves to get angry when people choose not to believe truth. You're going to lose that battle. You're going to lose that battle getting angry with people who believe not truth of what really is the theme of what they're trying to inquire. There's no use of you getting angry with them. You're going to lose that battle. Focus on what's going to strengthen you as you continue to move forward to where you need to go. It's an enormous point in everyone's life where we get to this point, and like I said earlier, we have to make a choice. We have to make a choice whether or not, that we're going to follow a path or be committed to a journey. And again, for you guys that are actually watching, leave us comments, post us questions, let us know how this topic, if you've went through it yourself, how it's made you better, made you stronger, the lessons that you learned, share those with us. Lady P, any of your perspectives?
You mentioned, I like how you mentioned move. You spoke about motivated and move is a different thing. Being motivated, you gotta be motivated and move when private becomes public. And I like your definition that when you stated move, it's to set things in motion. But then you went on and you spoke about path and journey. And when you said path, my mind went to in the scripture where it said there's a path, many of us are on the narrow path, many of us are on the broad, but few are on the narrow. And so it just kind of helped me to really distinguish the difference between the path and the journey, because whichever path you take is going to determine what your journey and the outcome of your journey is going to be. And so if we're on that path or we're on that road, down on the broad, then your journey is going to be a whole lot more chaotic
Amen.
than if you're on that path or that narrow road, whereas your journey will be not so hectic if you just stay on the narrow path that is described in the Bible. And sometimes we really do have to learn the difference between our strength and our weakness, and how, again, even the Bible says, and I don't know if it's more of a cliche right now, or I think it is in the Bible. I know we hear it so much where your weakness is your strength, and your strength can become your weakness. And I think it's in those seasons or in the times and moments when we allow the weakness to become our strength is when we're actually learning to let go and let God. We're actually, as I shared something with you yesterday, we're actually allowing whatever in our weakness, because normally in our weakness we're hurting, we're in pain, we're suffering, we're silent. But, when we're going through those things and we learn to just let go and let God, that's where we will realize that there is strength and weakness. And therefore, if we are hurting or someone has hurt us, and that's what's causing us to feel like we're weak, letting go and letting God also means letting God take vengeance and not you. Because sometimes we fight in our own strength. And even to that degree, we become weak, And the greatest strength is allowing God to do what needs to be done, and allowing Him to take vengeance when there is some wrong that is being done to you, or things are just happening that you can no longer bear. You went on to say, you spoke about action, and I was reminded how the word says faith without works is dead. And so, as we would say, cliche in the world, action is louder than words. And you was right on point, because when private becomes public, your actions do reveal to people who you really are, or what decisions you have made. Now, when it comes to relationship, it's nobody's business, like you said, the curious minds. We should never be worried or concerned about the curious minds, because at the end of the day, if you decide to reconcile or to stay with the person that you decide to be with, that's your choice. And if individuals decide to walk away, again, that's nobody's business but you and God at that point. So it's action has a lot to do with our role in our journey. What actions are we taking in our life? And that's with anything that we're doing. And you also mentioned there's some people who know you, and there's some people who understand you. And when you mentioned that, what came to my mind is that, when I notice a lot that when you are with people, like say people from your past, they say you was, someone who knew you or had known you in your past, okay? And then you catch up with them, or y'all cross paths, 10 years later, and one of the things that that stick out for me, the difference with someone knowing and remembering you, the person who know you or knew you, the conversation will always be, do you remember when? Do you remember when? Do you remember when? Because that's the person that they knew, or that's the person that they know. But it doesn't mean that they understand you now, because what you may have done, or what your actions may have been presently compared to what they were then, time has a lot of say to whether a person understand where you're at right now in your life. And so I may be in the same situation today and dealing with the same circumstance today, and how I may have dealt with it in the past. That person may know me from that as that person. So, but how I deal with that now may be strange to them. And sometimes, even in relationships, no matter what type of relationship it is, family relationship, couples relationship, sometimes people will still be stuck on who you were then and not who you are now, if you're still dealing with certain situations in your life over and over and over, you know. I was just having a conversation with someone. This is a good example with someone yesterday, and they were saying how in the past in their relationship, this is what would happen, and that they had already they had the conversations on those situations. They had apologized, but now today, if something comes up, the other individual is still responding on the past, not understanding that the other partner has moved on.
Exactly.
So there's no need for there's no need for past hurts or past statement because they have already owned up to that. So the key thing is that the other individual is not understanding that they have moved on. So there's no need to throw in, what may have been said or what may have been done 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. And so when you don't understand when a person has grown, and you should, because they actions. So if you're not looking at their actions, you're not understanding that they have grown, that they have moved on. So the truth of the matter is that the party who is now keep going to the past, that's the indication showing that they have not grown, that they have not moved on, and they still may be on that path that you have crossed over. You know, it's as simple as you have two when you walking down a block, there's two sidewalks, and sometimes it's sad that some people in relationship don't realize when the other person has already crossed the street and went over on the other side.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. That's right.
They don't realize
right.
they have crossed over.
That's right.
And a good analogy could be that, you know, like I said, when you're walking down a road, a street, every block, you know, you have a sidewalk, you have a street, and you have the other side. My God, this is just coming to me. And you can think of, you have the two sidewalks are narrow, and the street is what? Is wide and broad. Now, there's some people, because of what they both may be walking on the left side of the road. That's a narrow, they're both on that narrow path. And for some reason, when they say whatever may be going on, they'll cross over. But some of them will cross over and stay right in the street. That's a broad, because they're like, you know what I'm saying? They look, you know, they've had enough. They're like, look, you know, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do what I want to do, And so you're maybe still walking in the same direction, but this one's on the broad and this one's on the narrow. But eventually, you may find someone who, that same person may just, if they're still together, will cross over to the other side, still on the narrow, but they still have crossed over from the path because you're no longer now walking together. Because the word said we're two. How can you, if you agree, how can you, oh God, come to me, scripture, how can two people walk together unless they agree? So when they both was on the left narrow side of the road walking together, you know, that was one thing. But once one person has crossed and whether stayed inside of going abroad, say, hey, forget you, or crossed over to other narrow path, because it's like, hey, I can't be on that path that we both was on. It's either the other person's not going to cross over to the other path, and other narrow road that's going to keep them going, because, you know, life is all about, you know, you're going to find yourself sometimes to the left, to the right, but as long as you stay on the narrow and you stay in agreement, and you realize that this person is no longer who they used to be because they're growing, it's then up to you to decide whether you're going to get on that path as well, talking about relationships, you know, or you just going to, you know, continue to be on that journey of chaos and confusion and fighting and arguing and disagreeing and, you know, and all that stuff. And it becomes weary and tiresome. So action does speak louder than word. Because when you find that a person is no longer talking and there's more action, watch out. They have already crossed over from where y'all used to be in agreement or used to do things the same way, and they have come to the point of realizing that, you know, this journey on this road is going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to just cross over to the other side, because I'm not gonna come from us working together and stay in the border and cause more chaos. I'm gonna just cross over to the other side. Now, whether you're gonna meet me on the other side is one thing. What did Moses say when he went up and they started singing? He said, "Whoever's on the Lord's side, come on this side." You hear them saying?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's on the Lord's side, come on this side. And so sometimes when you're in a relationship, it comes there to where, look, if we're gonna be together, you now have to come on this side. And it shouldn't matter whether who's initiating the growth, whether it's the male or the female, because sometimes, men do get offended if it's the women leading sometimes with whatever idea or whatever concern. And it shouldn't be, because you got two people becoming one, and when we learn to lead, and one of the problems why two people can't become one is because sometimes we so attached still to what we know from as we were coming up, from our own experiences, from our parents, what we was taught, how to do this, how to do that, and then we grow up, how to do this, how to do that. And sometimes it's rough when you have two people becoming one. But the key thing is to never, ever, ever let it be a sex thing, a gender thing, but to let it be where there is knowledge. That's why when the word says get understanding, and all things get understand, because when you get understanding, then you can understand what the person knows and trying to share. And that's why it's understanding, knowledge, and wisdom. You can't get wisdom before you have knowledge. You can't have knowledge before you have an understanding. Because I may understand one way, you may understand another, but for us as in our own understanding to then share the knowledge that we have so that we can be able to stay on that path and that road that would get us keep us on the journey in the direction of which we're trying to go. So it's very crucial, like you said, that we don't get stuck on just knowing someone, but understanding them. Because you may have known me for how I was when you first met me, but I'm not the same person today. Because as years go on, days go on, months go on, people are growing, people are learning, and they should. People should be daily growing and daily learning. And so if there's no communication, then how can the individuals understand anything? Some people say, oh, too much talk. No, it's never too much talk. It's what you're really trying to say, the time to talk. Because too much talk, in a sense, is, well, I think back in our days, and where, a lot of comedians used to joan and joke about how, they women and them may have had a disagreement, and so they would go to the person's job to have a talk. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the timing is wrong. Just because you got something to get off your chest and you got to say, timing is very important. So it's never too much talk. It's when do you talk and how do you talk? Because it's never too much communication. You should always be communication, because it's through the communicating that then you understand, okay, well, this person is not in her thoughts and way of thinking sometimes even 2 or 3 days ago. You and I can have a conversation today and and understand, be in agreement, but it can be a week from now, and I may have been enlightened on something. I got some knowledge. So now I'm understanding differently. You know what I'm saying? I'm acting differently. And so you have to come back and, if it concerns to y'all, to then talk about that. So I think you hit a lot of nuggets there when you're talking about when private becomes public. Because in private, you do all the talking and, with one another. And And then when it gets to the public, you know, it's all about action, because when you have someone who's curious, or outsiders, put it that way, they're more or less all looking at they're listening to you, but they're more or less looking at your actions. And that's private or public, to be honest. But just to stick to the topic, you know, we have to be knowledgeable that 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 knowing and understanding is different. And I will say, because we had tech issues this morning, that if you still want to call in, and I know it's a local number, but you can call in the 301-292-4568 instead of the just for today, just instead of the number that has been posted, due to my delay with getting that done this morning. We don't want to not hear from anyone who has something to share. I thought about that as you was talking. I says, well, wait a minute, we can at least still use the local line for today if anyone wants to call in and share. And we thank God for some of the comments that I had seen on our live podcast for this morning. We just pray that everybody would just continuously pray for each other, pray for our nation, you know, pray for us, as we're all. I think everybody's lives at this point is going from private to public, you know, kind of due to COVID. Everybody from personal to businesses to church, and you know, everything has gone from private to public. And it is what we do more than what we say that people are watching right now, and I think it's because everybody is seeking some direction. Everybody is seeking answers, you know. We're no longer in the normal way of doing things. So what's the priority now? What's the focus? We know that we have our daily, you know, there are daily duties that we do, getting up, brush our teeth, comb our hair, getting dressed, go to work. But that's not living. That's just life, you know. That's not living. And so what is everyone's purpose? Some of us are still seeking that. And right now, everyone's life, I believe, has went from private to public. And so we're searching, we're seeking, you know, trying to get a sense of direction, trying to feel like our feet is planted, you know, on the solid ground, the solid rock, as we're still going on as usual. But most of us don't feel like it's usual, you know. So where do we go? What are we supposed to do? And I think it's just a time to just do what you would normally do, but also continue to seek and to find what it is that God is calling us to do, to calling you to do, because we're all in such a eyes on you right now. It really is. The whole world, everyone, I think, can say eyes is on you, you know, in every aspect and area of our life. Eyes are on us. And so our actions will speak, and you know, my prayer is that the Lord, that we will be diligently still seeking God, so that when our actions is lining up with what He's telling us, people would then say, okay, this is what is required of the people of God now, you know, because right now it seems like everybody is kind of, you know, still doing what they're supposed to do, but what is God really doing? You follow what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but I know it makes sense to me. What is He really doing? What is He really asking of us? And so we all kind of in this be still mode at the same time that we're just doing the normal, but knowing that the normal is not business as usual, is an uncomfortable situation. So all you can do is still seek Him, you know, and I think at this time I wouldn't do anything new. I wouldn't touch, you know what I'm saying? I would just, because you want to make sure, because you don't know. You know, this is a time to just be normal, and seek him before you do anything new, because we don't know what season we're in right now with God. What is he doing? What is he asking of us? And I think right now, the new norm is, and I think I forgot who I shared it with, is us, is doing the works of the Lord. Our norm has always been getting up, going to work, and running our own business, doing us. You understand? But if we're trying to find out what God is asking for, what the only way you're gonna find out now is by doing what God has sent His word to do. That's how you're gonna find out what is He asking, where is He at, and churches are still closed, whatever. There's a famine in the land for the word. There is a famine in the land for God's word, for His sense of direction. And so everything has been from private to public, and everybody's watching. Well, what's the new, how we would say, what's the new fad, what's the new fashion, what's the new direction, And so, and all you're gonna know now is if we privately, because there's no more dependent on anybody right now. You have to privately go into your closet. You have to privately call on the Lord. Because why? Because we're not fellowship in the way that we normally would. So everything is private. You know what I'm saying? But your private actions will become public based on what you're doing. And then that's how the Lord's going to reveal, because those who are remaining in private, seeking the Lord, eventually, my God, He's going to release to the public, and then we're going to know. But if no one is privately doing what they're supposed to do to understand what is God requiring, what is He saying, all we're going to see is people doing what they would normally do. So, that's my nuggets for today. And I just pray that we all just don't be so quick, but at the same time, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to step out and do what you think, what you believe that God is calling you. I truly believe that right now, and I heard some from T.D. Jakes, and I think he nailed it. I think we're really right now in the time of acting on your faith. Acting on your faith according to the word, and acting on your faith according to what God has told you, and acting on your word according to things that He has shared with you. It's really, I truly believe this is a season where faith is going to be the only thing that God is going to, it's always been, but it's that faith is connected to those prophecies now that were spoken, those promises that were spoken. You have, because only then will God be revealed and be revealed in the public. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's trusting God, trusting Him. It's hard right now. So we don't want to make the mistake of coming off that narrow path and going on the broad and just doing anything and everything because we're just not sure. You want to stay on that narrow path and just wait. Just wait. Whatever it is that you were doing that was working, continue to work on those things, because those, that's what you were doing prior to. So, God's not about subtraction, He's about addition, but it's we're in a standstill. It's like, waiting to exhale, but you nailed it when you said motivated. We have to remain motivated in spite of everyone being switched from this private to public. We have to remain motivated. We have to set in motion by moving according to the faith that God has already instilled within you, and putting that to the forefront now, because that's all you have. So whatever He had already put in you, that's all you have right now as we're waiting on what is God doing, what's next.